So after over 100 hours, I can finally say that I have completed every main story quest within Warframe, from the beginning all the way to Whispers in the Walls. I started this journey back in November of 2023 in one of my first videos to really gain traction, where I kind of talked about why I couldn't stop playing Warframe, with its loop of grinding, boring content to gain access to the real game being strangely addicting. But as I finished up Whispers in the Walls a couple weeks ago, I found myself oddly relieved that I could uninstall the game if I wanted and put it down for a while. And that's exactly what I did. I feel like the well-known idea of too much of a good thing applies heavily to Warframe, and any looter shooter in general, but specifically to Warframe here for a few important reasons that I would have liked to have known when I started playing the game, so that's what I'm going to be talking about here. My experiences throughout all of the incredible main quest lines, and why, despite how good it all is, how the rest of the game's aspects kind of made me stop playing over time, and I'm content to wait until some other main story stuff drops in the future. If you don't know what Warframe is, it's a free-to-play looter shooter, and if you know what that is, then you kind of know everything you need to know. Except that the main story missions, the main story campaign, rather, in Warframe, is genuinely incredible, with really impressive cinematics, really good storytelling, even though I didn't really know what was going on most of the time, and like really unique takes and unique gameplay mechanics for each new addition to the game. And while yes, I did enjoy every aspect of these missions, much like in any other looter shooter, there's a whiplash between this intense, story-heavy quest chains and the going back to grinding the same missions for materials. Now, this is something I'm used to as a former Destiny player, and this is inherent in most looter shooters, and I think part of this feeling with Warframe is that, I'm just kind of generally burnt out on this aspect of looter shooters in general. I recently played through the newest Destiny expansion, The Final Shape, and absolutely loved it, but I haven't felt like hopping back on since then just because I did the story, and that's kind of all I really wanted. But with Warframe, though, I would come out of a questline like The Second Dream or The War Within that really felt super impactful on my character, huge story and lore reveals that, like I said, I honestly never entirely understood, but it was still cool anyways. But I would come out of that just to have to go back to clearing an entire planet's worth of the same kind of missions that I've been doing for hours already, just to get to the next story beat, and that was such a downer. Like, I understand that that's just kind of how these quests were released. I know that a lot of these came out well after the game's initial release, and these planets, like, people had already done all this stuff. But as a new player, having to slog through planet after planet to get to the story content that I wanted to, it just wasn't it, man. Because I would get excited to get to the next quest, and then it would take me weeks at a time just to bring myself to grind these little missions in between. And don't get me wrong, these missions in between, grindy as they may be, are still good. They're still fun because the main feel of Warframe is fun. It's fast, it's much more fast-paced and smooth than something like Destiny, and you're using all the Warframe's abilities and, whatever. It is still fun in that aspect, but the missions itself, having to do them and not having an option to not, it was a lot. But it's not a lot. The sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. If you don't know what HelloFresh is, I honestly don't know how you don't, because they're one of the biggest meal delivery services out there, and they're one of the best in my opinion. Whether you're trying to save money, eat better, or stress less about going to the grocery store, which, let's be honest, is super stressful and groceries are so expensive, HelloFresh is here to help you do all three. Since it's America's #1 meal kit, you can say hello to the most delicious year or the back half of the year yet, with fresh ingredients and chef-crafted recipes every week at a price that you'll like, delivered right to your door. Plus, now you can treat yourself and prepare these delicious meals, which I don't actually have my box with me, but I have used HelloFresh multiple times in the past, and every single time the meals are amazing. But you can pair those meals with free dessert for life, and you can get one free dessert item per box while your subscription is active. If you're like me and you don't love meal planning, HelloFresh is also great for that because you kind of just get the meal plans sent to you. With 45 plus recipes and even more market items that can support your lifestyle, there's a lot of options for everyone. And if you're doing a lot of stuff on the go, one of my favorite new things HelloFresh has added is their quick and easy meals, which are all essentially about 20-minute recipes designed to kind of minimize stress and maximize the time you spend actually eating your meal instead of cooking it. So if any of this sounds interesting to you and you haven't tried HelloFresh yet, be sure to click the link in the description or use my code and get 10 free meals and a free dessert for life while your subscription is active. Again, click the link in the description or use my code and get 10 free meals and a free dessert for life while your subscription is active. Thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to it. Before we talk more about this balance that Warframe does, which I do think out of most looter shooters, Warframe does some of the best at, I do want to very briefly, because I know a lot of people are curious, talk about my opinions on the main quest lines. I may do a dedicated video in the future talking about them, but really quick, here are my thoughts for those interested. So for the second dream, I did a video on that, 10 out of 10. It blew my mind. If you know, you know. The War Within, I didn't love it that much at first, but looking back, it really is great and had some of my favorite cinematics in the game. So I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. The Sacrifice, I had no idea what was happening and still really don't understand this questline, but I loved it. So 8 out of 10. I love playing like mental space chess across timelines. Again, I have no idea what was going on there. The Chains of Haro. I know this is technically like a Warframe quest, but it is seriously one of my favorites. 11 out of 10. Love the whole like creepy factor so much that I did a whole dedicated video on it. The New War was literally insane. It was like Avengers Infinity War for Warframe. Being able to play as different races and characters and showing the impacts of the war across the system was incredible. Again, I'm not going to go into full spoiler territory for any of these, but there will be kind of spoilers probably with the gameplay. And then coming up to Whispers in the Wall, 10 out of 10, just for the 9 Inch Nail song in the cutscene. And I just love all the Man in the Wall mystery stuff. Like that is some of my favorite lore in Warframe. And for the Deviri Paradox, I haven't played it yet. I'm sorry. I probably will at some point because I do like roguelites. Overall, as the title says, these missions were just so incredible. But this whiplash I felt between each one grew as time went on, and I had to grind more and more between the missions. And I know I've talked about how rough this balance between the story and grind content is, but despite all that, like I said, I do believe that out of all looter shooters I have played, I played quite a few in my day, Warframe does strike one of the better balances through two specific things. The way the frame quests are brought up and the constant shaking up of how you can play the game with new mechanics literally all the time. On the mechanic side of things, I do not think that I've ever played a game that dishes out new twists on movement and gameplay so constantly and consistently like Warframe does. Each frame alone has its unique playstyles, of course, but what I'm referring to is things like the hoverboard, the flying suit mech, the necromech, the pilotable space freighter, and, light spoilers here, but the entire suite of abilities that your character gains throughout important story things. Like, it's genuinely mind-blowing how many of these are present within one game. Like, if I showed someone with no knowledge of Warframe each of these clips, I guarantee you they would think that they were different games altogether, because that's just how well made most of these mechanics are. Take the ship, for example. Some games are entirely just built around ship combat and customizing your ship and building out however you want. And that's just a part, kind of a small part really, of Warframe. Or the necromech. Using that can just be kind of the main gimmick of a game, and kind of is with like Titanfall and stuff. Obviously it's well more advanced and refined there, but the fact that it's in a game like Warframe is mental, because obviously, all of these aren't as well thought out and as implemented as if they were kind of the focus of a separate game, but it's so close that it's genuinely incredible. Like, as I was playing the game and I kept unlocking these new aspects and new gameplay mechanics, I was thinking to myself, man, if something like Destiny would implement this variety of gameplay mechanics over time, I would probably still be playing Destiny more, but for the most part, Destiny really doesn't do that. And it's something that Destiny and any aspiring looter shooter, I think, definitely needs to learn from, because while you're still doing essentially the same things in the ship missions, in Necromech, with the hoverboard, all this stuff, it just gives it a little variety, a little spice. Then even if you are doing the same thing, it makes it feel a little different. And really, the only other game I think that I've played that introduces new gameplay systems on this level is probably It Takes Two, which is like a story, single-player-ish focused game. And certainly no looter shooter, I think, would take the time and resources to dedicate mechanics on this scale. And that's the thing, right? Like, despite my feeling of burning out between doing the main missions, I overall still had a good time, because not only is the story so good with Warframe, the gameplay is just so smooth and so mesmerizing in a way once you get used to it. The sliding and air jumping and dashing and shooting and activating abilities and cycling them, it was really calming in a way. And when I knew I needed to grind a whole planet's worth of missions, I would just throw on a podcast or a YouTube video on my second monitor and just kind of like zone out. And it was really nice in a way. I used to do that with Destiny and can't really do that too much anymore. But Warframe, was kind of filling that niche for a little bit. For now, I'm just going to be putting the game down and picking it up off and on whenever big story drops happen, which may be sooner rather than later, depending on some tennocon stuff coming up. We shall see. But I want to end on this, because the title of this video is, the Warframe story is so good, I stopped playing. I know it's very, clicky or whatever, but it is definitely true, because Warframe story is so good that it was worth the grind in between to experience all these missions, really unspoiled. It was absolutely worth it. But am I glad I'm done? Yes. It's like I've never actually done this, but it's like reading a really, really big book series like Brandon Sanderson or like Wheel of Time and stuff, and being like, man, this is was a slog to get through, but I'm glad I did it because the payoff was worth it. And the payoff at the end of my 150 or so hours with Warframe, which I know is pretty low, some would say, but I was just speeding through the main quest lines, let me tell you. It was for sure worth it, and I am glad I experienced all of it, and I wish I could have skipped some, but hey, that's how the game is, and it was so good that for now, I am going to stop playing. And if you're someone who's experienced this like me, I would love to hear your kind of stories and experiences with Warframe in the comments. I know it's a game that many, many people love and many people hold close to their hearts. So any other Tenno out there, let me know your experience with the game. And I hope you all have a fantastic day.